We can't know when a terrible storm will strike, or where, or the severity of the devastation that it may cause. We can't know why we're tested with the loss of a loved one. These things are beyond our power to control. But that does not mean we are powerless in the face of adversity. How we respond when the storm strikes is up to us. How we live in the aftermath of tragedy and heartache, that's within our control. And it's in these moments, through our actions, that we often see the glimpse of what makes life worth living in the first place.
Like you saw that. Holy crap. That is a tornado, people. That is a tornado, and I'm getting it on camera. To myself, Lord. Keep my wife safe. She's over there, Lord. Oh my goodness. I'm worried about my wife. She's working at the hospital.
On the ground, 20th and Main. Probably going to have the worst damage around 20th and Main. We've got whole buildings missing, multiple subjects injured.
It's really it chokes you up when you see what's happened here, Paul. I mean, take a look. I mean, it's everything is just completely demolished. I mean, homes are destroyed, families' lives have been turned upside down at this point. And all I can say is it looks very reminiscent of what we saw last month in, in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, it's it's tough. No question about that.
I was the administrator on call, so I had gotten 2 calls earlier that day, one that we were preparing for condition gray and then one that we were executing. And I had been watching the weather, so when they told me they were going to execute, I wasn't surprised. It was pretty bad. We knew it was coming.
County under that tornado warning as this moves now into the southwest corner of Missouri. Joplin, heads up, take shelter immediately.
Security guard walked toward the ambulance doors, and he looked out and he said something like, "Oh my God, run!" And there was like a sea of black coming toward the hospital.
And at that time, I felt a big push from the front and one from the back at the same time.
We hadn't made it under the desk, and it started. The wind blowing, the ambulance doors blew open.
We have a few power dips, which takes out a couple air handlers. No big deal, you know, we reset them. Didn't think that much about it. Well, then the boiler goes off, shuts down due to the power dip. So I'm out there trying to reset it, then everything goes black.
Does anybody know where any medical is at?
I know St. John's was hit in that area.
It's a really weird noise, one that you can't really describe, and it hurts your ears. It's a lot of pressure in your ears.
The wind was blowing and roaring, and I kept thinking it has to be over with, it has to stop. And I could remember we were crouched down, and the ends of the bed was flapping up, and the patient was in the bed with the baby in her arms, and the dad was trying to hold on to him, and I started screaming at her to pray it kind of stopped for just a little bit, and I stood up and I yelled at her to give me her baby, and I put the baby inside my jacket.
But it's not a I'm done stop, it's a weird stop. And some people started to try to get up, and I'm like, no, I don't think it's done.
The next thing I know, that's when the backside of the tornado hit. And at that point, I can actually feel myself almost going out the window.
When it was going through the second time, I had my cell phone out, and I was under the desk, and I was trying to call Freeman's, because I'm like, you know, I need to let them know we're hit, this ER is down, we can't take patients. but the cell phones weren't working.
And when it finally stopped, when I remember opening my eyes, I just couldn't even see anything. I had so much debris and fine ground up glass in my hair, and looked down and the baby was fine.
And then we got out from underneath the desk, and the ceilings are falling down, the wires are falling out, it's dark. But initially, for the first like 2 minutes, the interior phones worked. And I called PACU, I got through to them, and I said, do you have walls and a ceiling, and do you have any water? And they go, no, we're dark. You know, we have no power, but we have walls and we have ceilings and we have no water. I go, okay, well, we'll come in your way.
We didn't know if we were supposed to stay there and wait for someone to come to us. All I could think about was I did not want to die on the 8th floor in a fire.
Initially, I no more thought that the whole hospital was hit. I mean, I really thought I was going to go somewhere in the hospital and set up an ER. They started pouring in the door. People carrying injured children, little dogs running in.
St. John's Regional Medical Center, it has taken a significant hit. You can see the people that are down there by the ambulance getting medical assistance. I have personally seen people injured. Unfortunately, I've seen people that are dead lying in the streets. It is a devastating scene.
But we just started doing triage and, you know, pressure on bleeding, and then we just all sent them to PACU.
So we have a pediatrician, Dr. Sherry Smith. She showed up as soon as she heard the tornado hit the hospital. She showed up at that door and with her van, and we loaded up all the moms and all the babies and took them straight to Freeman.
And we'd sort injured, not injured, injured, not injured, and we just keep sorting until we ended up with the worst injured in PACU. And then eventually we ended up just with those ones that we'd done emergency procedures on, and then we put them into ambulances, 6, 7, 8 people at a time. And the most injured went to Freeman's, and then the others went to Memorial Hall.
The citywide disaster plan says that we're to go to Memorial Hall. And I was one of the first people in the hall. We had the janitorial staff, managerial staff of the hall, and then the nurses from the emergency room started trickling in and patients started coming in. My concept was, when I got there, I had this big empty room and some banquet tables, and my thought was, let's try to physically recreate the emergency room as it's laid out geographically at St. John's, so that when people come in, we can say, well, that's cardiac and that's pediatrics and that's OB, and that way we can also put staff and supplies along that way. So over the next 24 hours, we gradually got beds, we gradually got curtains and some privacy. But in the first hour at Memorial Hall, I had probably in excess of 80 or 100 patients from the neighborhood around there that had come in with cuts and bruises and broken things. And I didn't see anybody panic. I didn't see anybody lose their cool. You know, everything was about as bad as you can imagine, short of a nuclear bomb. But people forgot about themselves and did what was important to get the patients taken care of. But there were some tremendously courageous people that were just doing the right thing.
I think seeing it come down will be kind of bittersweet. You know, when you look up there and you see broken windows and cracks and just darkness, it really makes you sad inside.
Clearly it's a big deal when we're moving from this building that for 40 years has had so much emotion, and you know, it's the people they've served. It's not really the building, but the building was the place where it all happened, and that's what we attach it to. So it's all those feelings, all those lives saved, all those incredible people. So
I've spent 25 years at St. John's. My family has always been patients there. I had both of my children at this hospital, and I lost my father-in-law and lost my grandmother in this building, so there's a lot of memories.
I have known this corner being lit up for 40 years, and to see it dark, it breaks my heart, but I know that for all of us here, it will bring some closure.
Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to have so many of you with us here tonight. We're honored to be here with you on this sacred ground. You know, we are standing and sitting on holy ground tonight, aren't we? This evening, we recognize the thousands of families that have been touched by the work of individuals, by your work, who have served on this campus, and bid farewell to these facilities and the land that facilitated the countless moments of service rendered here for the past 43 years.
This land, this place, and all of its people have served the continuum of life from the time the ministry relieved the suffering of the first miner through the efforts of our staff, many of you, to protect our patients as the May 22nd storm devastated our facility. But as we did in 1900 and in 1968, we turn our focus to a new place, one on which we will build the future of healthcare.
Mercy that very next day said, we're not only going to be rebuilding this hospital, but we will keep those people employed.
Most of us that were scheduled back on went back to work that morning at 8 o'clock, and we're at Memorial Hall seeing people. We saw 160, 200 people daily.
The first week of the disaster in the Memorial Hall, we didn't bill. So basically those were free services for that first week.
And it was kind of a good way of nursing because there's no charts, there's no charging. You know, we see you, we treat you, and you go on your way. It was just back to the art of nursing.
We stopped copays and deductibles at our facilities just to make sure that we weren't adding additional hardships to anyone in the community.
When you were at Memorial Hall, you could see a cardiologist within 5 minutes of your arrival because all the docs were there to help. They were standing there waiting to provide care to people.
It was amazingly effective. And of course, besides the walking wounded and people that we had to take care of from the tornado, the usual number of patients that we would normally see in the emergency room, plus the hundreds of patients that we had whose doctor's offices had been destroyed, who had no prescriptions, who needed refills, who needed immunizations or shots.
And when we were at Memorial Hall, we finally got the ambulance radio set up so they could call in, and we get an ambulance calling to St. John's Memorial. And it was just so cool because we still are St. John's.
We were providing care at Memorial Hall, and we're seeing a lot of patients there, but there was no privacy. It was just a big open, gymnasium floor basically. So we had to hurry up and move to the next phase of this.
Our first thought after making sure people were safe was, where are we going to provide care? Freeman does a great job, but they're not going to be able to support this region. We support such a big region. Joplin's not that big itself, but we support probably 600,000 or 700,000 people. So then Mercy helped us think through, how do we take care of the needs of this region?
The guys from DMAT came up to me and they said, you're with St. John's, we have this tent that we can deploy. We can loan it to you for a temporary time, get you back up and running, providing services to the community. Our COO, Dottie Bringle, and then the system, Lynn Britton, CEO, and Mike McCurry, the COO for the system. Immediately, I sent the DMAT guys out to talk to Dottie to see if it was something clinically that we could do. They all went to Branson to look at it and decided to get it here and get it up and going and to immediately provide services within a week, and we did.
I said, Lynn, wouldn't it be cool if we went down on Sunday and we came back exactly 1 week later and started seeing patients?
Everybody was talking about the tents, we're bringing this, and they're doing that. So my impression was, hey, they're coming to set up this thing, I'll just kind of make sure it's okay. But it wasn't just the DMAT piece. It was a CT, it was an MRI, it was a surgery trailer, it was a dialysis unit, it was food services. All these components and pieces were being brought to the site by Mercy Command Centers and our partnering purchasing partners, ROI. But when they arrived to the site, it was my team's responsibility to figure out how to fit it on that parking lot and power it up.
It was an interesting week to see all the things that came together, medical gases, electrical connections, the supplies and the housekeeping and all the things you just take for granted every day that you work in a brick and mortar hospital, and how people work through that, figuring out how this is going to work in this environment.
Then Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, we reopened our hospital, and we saw our first patient at 7:03. And I will tell you, I've never felt so proud probably in my whole career.
Dr. Dotson had a really cool moment that first week. He was being interviewed where he was standing up in the parking lot of where our field hospital was. He swung the camera back towards the old hospital and said, "That hospital is not Mercy." Swung around and looked at all of the activity up there. That's Mercy. And to be a part of that, it was very, very significant.
We were in that facility for 120 days. During that 120 days, there were 1,070 patients that were admitted and discharged through those 30 beds. There were 250 operations done in that 120 days. There were, I think, 7,500 emergency room visits in that 120 days. And we also did outpatient labs and x-rays and CAT scans, and I think that number was about 8,000. So an amazing volume through a tented facility that was really meant not to have that kind of volume.
The field hospital has worked really amazingly well, and I'm surprised at how well our people are holding up working in there. It's not a great environment to work in.
You know, we've done the best we could, but it was never meant to be long-term, and I don't think we would ever get a blessing long-term. It's short-term, we have to move into the hard sides. And the hard sides we're moving into for what I'm calling Phase 2A. If you think of the tennis Phase 2, or Phase 1, Phase 2A is kind of a trailer. Those would not be long-term either, but they are okay to get us out of the tent for the next phase.
We learned of the portable buildings, and as we're trying to make the plans, our initial concerns were, initially, is the state and regulatory people even going to allow us to do this? I mean, we don't have the power distribution, we don't have the air changes, we don't have any of the stuff that's minimum requirements, but we did have a lot of it. So it's instantly identifying, if we put these portable systems together, what do we have to provide to make sure we're providing safe patient care environment?
We'll replace the operating rooms in the emergency room first, and then that'll take the tent pieces of that down. And then we'll add further modules that'll take the patient care areas and give us more capability. Plus it just gives our staff a good hard-sided building to work in.
The emergency department moved in first, and I can't tell you how happy that staff were when they moved in. They had hard walls, they had restrooms, and they had toilets that flushed and doors that shut. And that was, quite candidly, all they wanted.
They're not meant to be long-term though. So that will get replaced by this component-built hospital. And so those components are being built and will be trucked in and then put together as really a very nice permanent hard structure.
Really, the tough part in the beginning was this has never been done before, obviously, and the volume and scale of how we were going to accomplish this. The concern was, can we really crank that much product out of the existing availabilities of services and make this thing happen in the time frame we want to make it? The challenges really were going out, looking at the factory, getting a comfort level that could be produced. The logistics of how are we going to get 240, 250 some pieces of modular buildings from California to Missouri, getting the site ready and knowing exactly what has to happen to that site prior to those buildings showing up.
And so we're installing somewhere around 8,000 square feet a day. That if it arrives, we install it. And as soon as that's in place, then we just start the sub-trades right in behind us, so that as we clear a phase or clear a wing, then we give that to Joplin and give that to Mercy so they can start doing their low voltage, their special equipment, all those things that have to happen before the hospital can be certified.
So opening the interim hospital will just raise their mindset back to the fact that we're really back and able to do all of the great things that we've done.
From May 22nd until April 1st, we will have functioned, developed in 3 hospitals, all uniquely different, all have their own unique challenges and or opportunities.
There are still every day, are we making a good financial decision? Some decisions we are making because it's the right thing to do. and they're not good financial decisions. You're making the best financial decision you can given the circumstances.
I mean, the emotions of what happened here, and you know, for the 7 months of what we've been putting together, the tents, the Johnson portables, the Walden building, and now getting these people getting into the new replacement hospital and this old one coming down. I think it's just so symbolic for them and for all of us for what we have done, what they've been through, and what they're going to get to go into here in the next 3 years. I think it's just, you know, helps the community move on.
You know, when a building has been something that has experienced so many aspects of life, it simply becomes more than a building. I mean, think about what has occurred over the decades in this structure that's next door.
You know, it's the people we remember, but somehow when we were serving those people, we attached that to a building where we did that. So that's the hard part about today. But it's also a wonderful time to celebrate, and that's mostly what we're going to focus on today. So we appreciate so much all of you being here to be with us here today.
Well, for me, I've been in and out of this hospital several times. My wife passed away here. Just a lot of memories, good and bad here. To the community, it's one chapter closing, and this afternoon another chapter opening.
I think it's very important. I'm very proud that they're doing this. I think it's very important that we get some closure. I'm going to miss it a lot.
We're going to have a ceremonial first swing of the ball, and I'm trying not to look at any of my coworkers because they're the ones who are tearing up a little bit at this time.
Let us ask for God's blessing on all those who are currently experiencing illness and who devote themselves to caring for the sick. And let us ask the divine blessing on this land on which the future of this community's health ministry will be constructed.
A once-in-a-lifetime storm thrusts this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity upon us, and we're going to make the most of it. We're not afraid of greatness because we seek it to better care for the community of Joplin. The past 7 months has proven the greatness of its people, and on this ground, a great hospital will be built, and a great community will be served by it for many generations to come. So it's indeed a great day for the men and women of Mercy, for the people of Joplin, and for the memory of all those who've gone before us with the gift of healing in their hands. So please, dignitaries, come up and let's turn this dirt and let's get this new facility built.